Welcome to the show today, David. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I love this, the title of your show, Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. I think it's a very powerful and little understood topic of what it means. So I'm excited to get into this.
Oh, thank you. It's actually funny because I literally say those words saved my life like 5 years ago. And it's funny how things get stuck in our head and it's like, just follow that gut. Now I look at it and I couldn't imagine it being named anything else because it makes total sense with everything that I do. And your story to me, from what I know of your story, ties so well into those words. And this is part of the conversation that I want to have with you today.
Well, that is fantastic.
When I look at,
and I just realized I forgot to hit record, so I'm hitting it now on my end. So in case one of us says something profound,
in case it's going to happen, we know that.
damn right.
It's going to happen. So as we're in this space, I would love it if you would just share a couple snippets about you, because I want to get into your story, overcoming adversity, and who you are and what you're doing in the world today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started in a little country town in Australia where my main job was trying to avoid getting into a fight outside the pub every Friday night. And looking back, I can see the development of David Wood. I had a tragedy when I was 7. My little sister was killed in a bus accident, and I was there. I was 7 years old. She was 5, and I witnessed it. I saw it.
Wow.
And at the time, I didn't think, oh, I'm experiencing trauma and I might need some help for this. So I just grew up normally as far as I knew.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back and having done therapy and whatever, it seems that I shut down my emotional side and I got very good with the intellect. So I came top of my school. I got paid to go to college. I became an actuary, which was brutal. Even topping my school, it was just brutal qualifying as an actuary. And then I got a job transfer to New York, Park Avenue, at the age of 24. And I'm consulting to Ford and Exxon and Sony Music and Procter and Gamble. So that's the upside of what happened. But I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. And I was having trouble in my marriage. I was having trouble emotionally. And so therapy really helped me start to reclaim those parts of myself, the emotional intelligence and how to feel and how to cry. And then when I discovered personal development, I didn't want to do it because they all wore name tags and they smiled way too much. And I'm like, I don't believe this can be real. And these are a bunch of self-help junkies, but I'm going to get in and get out because my marriage wasn't working and I wasn't really happy. And I thought, well, let's see what it's about. Thank God I did it. And kicking and screaming, I did it. And I didn't want to do the second course either, but I just said, well, I'll just do one more and I'll be out. And then I started coaching people during the course. I couldn't stop myself. People would be stuck. And I ended up helping someone. She changed her life overnight. By revealing something to her husband she'd been keeping a secret for 10 years. And she came back and reported that they felt like they were floating in love 6 feet above the ground for the first time in 10 years. And I'm like, I want more of that. So I quit my job, which seemed like crazy. I quit this cushy consulting job, moved back to Australia. And after a few fun detours as a professional entertainer, I got myself in a coaching program and I got myself certified. And that was in 1998. I started coaching and I don't think I'll ever stop. Mm-hmm. I've had detours. I've published books and I'm a speaker. And right now I'm in Hollywood, Los Angeles as an actor. But it's part of who I am as I learn things and I learn how to both use the left brain to double business and revenue and like that, but also use the emotional side to open up and feel and be human so that we can really live our lives. I find that I want to share it. I want to share that with people. So I just can't ever see myself stopping coaching. The long answer to a question.
Oh, it's not a long answer. It's fantastic. As I'm listening to it, it's even if you paint the picture there, 1998, you started coaching, that was far ahead of what we see normally. Like it is such a big field right now. And so really where you said, I just want to ask you, you said personal development, you went kicking and screaming, but you did it anyways. Was it your idea? And B, was it that I knew I wanted something different? So like if
Mm.
explain the kicking and screaming part and then still choosing to go.
I like that. Um, I was complaining about my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and someone said, she should go and do the Landmark Forum,
Mm-hmm.
this course. And when she told me a bit more about it, like she said things like, you get to a point in the course where you realize that you are truly alone, and then blah. And she just kept on talking. And as she was talking, I was like, I think I could use that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had a taste of personal growth. I'd had a taste of true connection when I was 17. I got accepted for a Rotary scholarship. It's called RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Award.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I do know. Yes.
I got in through huge luck. They just needed 2 people, and my dad was having a beer with the guy who selected people, and he said, well, what about David? And he's like, all right, boom, I'm in. And that was a week of connection like I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about connection like I'd never had. I was quite isolated. I was your average kid. I read books a lot, but I didn't really have a lot of expressed love in my life. And these people were so wonderful, and it was so much fun, and it moved me. And straight away, I applied to be a leader, because you can be a counselor for it. Only the next year, but I was so young. I was one of the youngest people ever to do it. And they said, you're a bit young, you made the short list, but we can't do it. So I never got to do that.
Oh, wow.
So that was the end of my personal development streak.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until age 23, 24, when someone was telling me about this, I'm like, let me just see what this is about. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then I thought Landmark was the be all and end all, but since then I've had so many other teachers and coaches, and and now even my acting journey is a journey into who I am, and what I'm feeling, and how to express. It's a lifelong quest, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here with you.
Oh, it actually, you made me think of, thank you for sharing all that with me. I grew up with a lot of challenges from a young age, right? I think a lot of us have had different experiences. And I think I was 12 or 13 years old. And in school, I won a chance to go to a leadership conference, which was very much like Ryla, and how they the same kind of format in the sense. No, I didn't travel to another place, but we went to a retreat. I think it was like 5 days. I guarantee you those 5 days at 13 years old changed me. And I don't think I realized it until later. And then in my probably 30s and 40s, I did do some different network marketing. And my big thing about there was I learned things about personal development, about myself, that were so, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I know that they are lessons that continue to play out today. So I'm all for being a learner, a student, and integrating it into our life, not just like taking it in, but integrating it.
Hearing that, I just made a connection I've never made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I coach leaders. I coach business owners.
Mm-hmm.
I coach executives. I've, coach vice presidents at Warner Brothers. And I said to myself, like 4 years ago, I said, do I know anything about leadership? I suspect I do, but if I do, I don't know that I do. And I kept sitting with this for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been training in emotional intelligence and vulnerability and transparency. And I was a motivational speaker, and I was like, do I know? And I asked my friends, and, we kept going. It turns out I do. Turns out my whole life was, every time I'm coaching someone, I'm leading them somewhere, when we're always leading ourselves. And then if you're going to speak on stage, you're leading the audience. And leadership,
100%.
yeah, and leadership, my definition is, hey, over there is better than over here. Who's with me?
Oh,
And even on the on my book, and I know we're going to get to it, but I have this beautiful quote by Shannon Muir, who's a vice president at Warner Brothers. David's approach connected the dots between who I am and how I lead. And I never, ever thought, you know what, at age 17, I did the Rotary Youth Leadership Award, RILA, which is all about the heart and connection.
yep.
And then here I am now at age 53, coaching in leadership. And I didn't trace it back to that. I was going to say I should drop them a note, but in Bali, when I was living there for a few years, I saw this Indonesian man with a T-shirt that said RILA, and I grabbed him. I said, and there was a local chapter, and I went and offered to come and speak about my experience and how it impacted my life. So I did thank them and made a donation. So thanks for helping me make that
You're
connection.
so welcome. You're so welcome. I have often said, I wish that most kids could have the experience that I did at a young age, because I think what it does with, we can't lead anyone if we can't lead ourselves. It's not possible. We have to lead ourselves first. And so when you're in that experience, you also start to recognize there is actually more outside of myself. Like when you're 12 and 13, even to 17, it gets really easy to get thinking that like the world revolves around me. And because that's how we think when we're younger. But being in these experiences allow us to see outside of ourselves and to see what else is available and how we can all make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so many things to talk about. So let's just for a second, I want to ask you, you are definitely about like transparency, honesty, vulnerability, letting people see who you are. Again, preaching to the choir. It like those words changed my life and they brought the most incredible people into my life. But there's so many risks that are involved and people are so afraid to do it. How speak to someone who's listening who says, yeah, I wish I could show up and be the real me, but I can't, I'm too afraid.
It can be terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all this learned behavior. You know, I wasn't asked as a kid, David, how are you feeling in your body? What's happening with you?
No.
And I call these experiences, you know, anything we're feeling in the body, any emotion we've got, any thought we've got, I call them mice. And I call it because we all know about the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You see it, I see it, no one's saying anything. Okay, we should address the elephant in the room. But what if we don't know if the other person sees it? What if it's just something going on with us? We need a term for it. So I call them mice. And that's why my book's called Mouse in the Room, because the elephant isn't alone.
And I love this picture here because you've got like, you can see the elephant, but I love that explanation. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I didn't intend it, but on the book, if you can see the video now, you'll see there's a huge elephant. Mm-hmm. But the book's called Mouse in the Room, and there's a little mouse in the O. You got to look for it. Mm-hmm. It's subtle. And when you know, so my parents didn't say like, how are you feeling in your body? You know, you seem angry. You're feeling angry. Say more about that. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a thing. So we learn not to express ourselves. And we find out if we do actually bring it to our conscious awareness and we name it, like, you know what? I felt really insulted in what you said in that meeting last week. Mm-hmm. We know it may not go well. The person might have their own reactions. And if it's our boss, maybe our job's on the line. Mm-hmm. In relationship, if we broke an agreement, let's take an extreme situation, you cheated. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you spent some money on something that you shouldn't have, and you kept it a secret because you don't want to deal with it. There's so many situations where it can actually be very scary. We don't know what's going to happen. So let's break it down. Fear of loss. I might lose my job. I might lose this relationship. I might lose respect. This person might badmouth me and hurt my reputation, which, you know, it's primal. Going back to caveman days, if we were kicked out of the tribe, mm-hmm. we would die. So there's a lot in us saying, no, don't say it. And we haven't been trained. We don't have a roadmap on how to say it. Mm-hmm. So for someone who's like, oh, but I want to use a concrete example. do you have an example? If not, I'll make up one.
Well, I think one of the things that I talk a lot about, like our shame stories, the things that we call shame, right?
Yeah.
The things that the experiences that we've had. And because we don't use a voice and we don't share the experiences that we've come through because we're afraid of what others are going to think, we only further isolate ourselves and make us feel like we're the only person in the world
Okay.
who's struggling.
Well, so I'll come up with an example from my life about that.
Mhm.
And I won't go into the details because that's private, but I can still tell about the story. So when I was a teenager, I did something that was illegal, and it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. But later in life, I was like, that was wrong,
Mhm.
and it could have hurt somebody. And so I've just felt bad about it for years. And I had to do a lot of work to clear the shame and the guilt, including tracking down the person and apologizing.
Wow.
So, okay, we could start with that one then. No, I'll work up to it. I wanted to track down the person, apologize, but I didn't know how to reach them. So I had to reach out to my family.
Mhm.
And so I had to admit this to my family, and it was just horrendous. I was worried about being rejected
Mhm.
and being and having a really horrible reaction. And so, if you're scared of something like this, in the book, I outline the 3D process. And the first D is for discover. You want to discover what's going on for you. I have shame about this. I feel guilt. These are all mice. I'm worried that you're going to reject me as your son.
Mhm.
I'm worried about prosecution. I'm worried that I go to jail because I could have done jail time for it.
Mhm.
So it's good to get clear. And there's a worksheet. Actually, at mouseintheroom.com, there's a free worksheet you can download that'll take you through this. So you got to get clear for yourself. That's one of the reasons it's so scary. You don't know what's going on. So work out your mice. And then the second D is for decide. Is this a mouse worth naming? Should I share it? And it'll take you through questions like, okay, what's the downside? All right, we just went through that: prosecution, rejection, ostracism. You get clear on it.
Mhm.
What's the upside? Often we forget, we miss that. The brain will miss that. What's the upside of naming this, coming clean? Okay, I could be free for the first time in 30, 40 years. I could, it's good practice at doing something scary because I know it's good for me in the world. I could feel more connected with the person. I could make a difference in their life by apologizing. Well, so we're still talking about my family. So I could just be more seen and known and have a chance for real love. Because if you have secrets and people know the front that you're presenting to the world, which all of us are presenting some kind of a front. You
Every
think
single
you're not?
one. Yep.
We all
Every
are,
single
including
person.
me,
Mhm.
right? And the game is, can I keep spotting it and then choose if I'm going to reveal that mouse?
Mhm.
And so, so you generate the upside of everything that could happen, and then you weigh it up. Am I willing to accept these consequences?
Mhm.
And this is not complex, but you need to know the steps. Otherwise, it could be a train wreck. Am I willing to accept the consequences? And let's jump now to actually tracking down the person and apologizing. I could have been prosecuted. So one consequence was prison time.
Mhm.
And it took me 10 years, but I finally decided I am willing, if that's what it takes, to apologize and to have this freedom and to maybe make a difference for them.
Mhm.
I'm willing, because that's who I am in the world, and I'll do it. And that took some working up. So I want to give everyone an extreme example, because then something like, oh, I'm just going to tell someone I feel betrayed, or that I want something different in the bedroom, that should seem a lot easier to you.
Yes.
So you decide, and if you decide, yes,
Mhm.
I'm going to do it, then the third D in the 3D process is to disarm. You want to disarm the person so that they're well positioned to receive it. They've got context. They know what's going, otherwise it could be an absolute train wreck. And that includes things like sharing your why. Hey, I'd like to talk to you about X, and here's why. Because, you know, I want to make a difference for you, or I want to live a life of integrity, or I want us to have a great working relationship, or I want our sex life to be even better than it is, whatever. Some positive intention is going to make a huge difference. And if you have a little vulnerability, if there's something you're afraid of, like you're nervous about it, you can maybe even share that. I'm nervous about it because I'm worried that maybe you'll take offense or you'll feel attacked. It's not my intention, but I do want to share it because of this why. Huge difference. Then you want to get consent. Is that okay? Are you open to talking about it? Do you have a few minutes now? Could be a simple version. Is now a good time? You get consent. Someone said, yeah, bring it. Huge difference to what one of my colleagues did. And this is one of my colleagues who trains in authentic relating, teaches it, said, hey, we need to talk. I'm pissed. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Or, hey, Mary, I cheated on you 5 years ago. No, we don't want to do that. Or, hey, I just can't be around you because you stink of cigarettes and I just can't. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to disarm the person. So if you follow the 3 Ds, even for something as terrifying as risking losing your job or your marriage or your, and I've got stories about each one of those, job or your marriage or your freedom, then things can go a lot better. Now you may decide, I want to say this, Marsh, you may decide not to name the mouse. Still valuable doing the worksheet. I call them mirror mice, just for you. So you know, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. This is a secret that I'm holding, or this is the withhold I have, or this is the desire mouse I have, or this is the toleration mouse I have. Now, at least I'm clear on what's going on. That's a win, to have the clarity, whether or not you name the mouse.
That is such a huge win. And I thank you for how you laid that out. And you really just gave such a great, simple context. We'll make sure everything is connected in the show notes. But I love this piece on mirror mice. So I like to, I mean, I've shared my vulnerable story many times, and I invite people, I have people come into my space that share it all the time. But people say, but I don't want to share my story like openly and publicly. And I'm like, you don't have to. But if your story holds you back from showing up and living your life the way that you want to and the way that you deserve to, then it is holding you back. Even if you don't share it publicly. And that's mirror mice. I love how I love that just clicked for me with mirror mice. I love that.
Miracles can happen. The kind of magic that we watch movies to see, we see that great feeling at the ending when someone was vulnerable and whatever. That's possible right here today in your life. The barrier is all this, oh no, that's not going to work. That's going to be uncomfortable. They'd never take it well. It's going to be a disaster. That's the barrier. If you're willing to download the damn form at mouseintheroom.com and work through the worksheet and take a risk to name it, miracles can happen. I'm going to rattle off. It just loaded up in my brain, so I'm going to rattle them off. I called a bully from high school that bullied me, and I hated him for years. I called him to name my mice. The girl who dumped me when I was 15 twice, gave me the cold shoulder, resented her for years, called her. The boss that I sued 5-10 years later, I thought, is there any bad will there? I wonder if there is, and if I could clean that up. Called him. These are very, very, very scary, terrifying calls for me. And I did them, and each one was a miracle. Each one was like an apology, or what can I do now to help us move forward? I got a friend out of one of the calls. My boss shared something about his divorce. He'd never told me anything personal. We had this deep conversation. I'm like, what just happened? Miracles happen. And speaking of own your choices, own your life, I didn't share details from that earlier story, but I just thought, what is something that I do have some embarrassment and shame about, and I will own it by sharing it now. When I was 19, I had my first serious girlfriend, and I got drunk at a work party and slept with someone else.
Mhm.
And when I woke up, I was hungover and horrified. And you think that was an easy mouse to name, to say, hey, I cheated and I am beyond sorry. I feel terrible and I will do whatever it takes to make it up to you and earn your trust.
Mhm.
That was a difficult conversation. And I'm saying it now on air, partly because I realize I may well be judged. People will be like, I cheated. You know, what a horrible person. Um, I own it. That was my choice. I did that.
Mhm.
And I made it right. And eventually we did get married. And I can't even imagine not having named that mouse. She broke up with me,
Mhm.
as she should. And I had to earn her trust back. And I did. And today, I mean, that was a long time ago. Today, we're not married, but I like to say I'm happily divorced to a wonderful woman. And I recently went and stayed with her and her new husband and her 6-year-old boy who calls me Uncle David.
Oh, wow.
Miracles can happen if you're willing to have the courage to follow the 3D process.
I love all of that. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so when you learn to own that mouse, when you learn to own that piece, like you create freedom for yourself and you're not holding it, you're not carrying it, it's not defining you in the same way. The other piece that I think is important that I want to ask you is I'm assuming when you're doing this, like when we're talking about sharing these vulnerable parts and we're talking about putting ourselves out there and doing it, we also have to go in with the expectation that we're not attached to how this person responds, because we also know every time we put ourselves out there doesn't mean that the person's going to be meeting us with open arms and say thank you so much for being open and honest. You might get there eventually or not, but the expectation piece, as humans, we put such a expectation of how it's supposed to go, and when
Yeah.
it doesn't, then we think, oh, we failed, or I've screwed up again.
Yeah. That's where I really believe this second D of the process, decide, when you fill in the form and you list the negative consequences, like what could go wrong. And I'll give an example of an action that I'm concerned about right now. I'm in an acting class,
Mhm.
and it's pretty serious stuff. It's 7 to 11 p.m., 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., 2 nights a week. It's really hard for my body, hard
Mhm.
for my nervous system. And I still deal with fatigue, and it messes up my day. I've made a choice, and they say you have to show up to the whole class. There's no leaving early. I've made a choice to leave class by 9 o'clock each time. And I'm worried about it. Like, what are the consequences? Now I've named my mice, and well, you know what? No, I'm getting an insight. So this is good. I've told the teachers and I've told the stage managers so they understand. And they've said, okay, just text me each time you're going to leave. So every time I have to text, I'm out. Good night. But what I'm worried about, they just promoted someone from the intermediate class to the advanced class. And last night, it was, everyone applauded, and it was huge, and it was like it was a graduation. And I realized they might hold me back and say, this guy isn't serious. So I'm
Mhm.
worried about that. They might say, you can't continue this class if you're not going to do the whole thing. And I might have to switch to a daytime class, or I might have to find another school. So I have concerns about that. And I have mocked up the consequences, and I have decided that I'm willing to accept those. That's the owning your choices. And then you don't have to be as worried, okay, I
Mhm.
wish it didn't happen, but if that's how it is, and I call that dignity. Owning your choices is a place to stand that says my voice matters and this is right for me. Other people may freak, but this is right for me. And I call that dignity. And the insight I just had is I have not shared my mice. This is weighing on me, and I haven't shared my mice. And what I'm going to do now, and I commit to this right here, is I'm going to sit down with each of the teachers and say, notice I've been worried. I love this. My mice are popping up right now, so I'm just going to name them instead of filling in the form. I love this school. And I feel very committed, hugely committed to my career and to my training. And it's just brutal on my body and my nervous system. I don't yet know how to stay up till 11 and do these classes. And it is not fun at all. So what I've been doing now is leaving by 9, unless I have a scene that I have to stay for, is I'm showing up on time. I'm leaving by 9 to take care of myself. And I'm worried that someone's going to say, you can't train in this school. And if you, and I'm happy to supply a doctor's note if that'll make a difference. So, it's not laziness, but I noticed I've been concerned about that. And I just wanted to say it and see, is that a risk? Is that a possibility? Or is there someone else I need to speak to? I can handle that. So it's not constantly weighing on me.
I love this real time, real life sharing that you're doing, because it's relatable to so many people. And I'm just going to say, as my own like 2 cents, I think it's really powerful when you own what works for you, when you're like, you own that piece of it. If you asked me to be in something very intense until 11 p.m. every night, it would kill my nervous system. And to be honest, it's just, that's me. You want me to start at 5 or 6 in the morning, probably could do it. But nighttime is not, I am not at my best, not even close. But learning to respect that, not judge that, I think is really powerful. And that's a very powerful share. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I'm so pleased that I discovered it. Like, as I was saying it, I said, I've named my mice. And I'm like, no,
Wait,
I haven't told them my experience. I've said I have a health issue. And I sometimes need to leave early. And I said that to one teacher and she was okay. The other teacher just asked me as I was leaving once, where are you going? And I said, I have a health issue, but I haven't actually really sat down and said, I notice I'm worried. I'm worried about losing my place in the class because it means a lot to me. And I think that could be quite transformative, that conversation, to let them know that, because one of the teachers may not know that. No. He hasn't seen me he's only seen me do one scene. The other teachers seen me do 8. So she totally gets who I am in the class. He doesn't, because I haven't shown myself. I haven't let him know. I'm absolutely committed. I got 12 scenes on the books right now. He doesn't know that. And so I'm very excited to have spotted that.
I love this is such a great conversation. And before I take it to the next thing, are you able to tell us like what you are, like what acting wise are you working towards? What is something that you've been part of? Anything you want to share in there? Because I'm just curious.
Thank you. Yeah. I love being asked about acting. Last July, so a year ago, someone, I finally spoke a dream that I had, and I didn't even identify with it as a dream. I just been thinking for 10 years, one day I'd like to be professionally trained as an actor and go and do auditions and live that life. And it was a one-day thing. And then finally, I only got a year lease on my last place in Boulder, Colorado. And I thought, well, I don't want to move into a place for just 1 year, but then I'm into efficiency. I'm like, maybe it's time to finally move to Hollywood and do that. So I mentioned it to a friend and she said, I did that. And we got talking, and a week later she called me and said, I'm going to audition for Dracula, a play that they're producing in Denver. Do you want to come with me? And part of me said, are you crazy? I haven't done a class yet. I'm not going to do that. And another part of me said, this is the universe knocking. This is how it goes. So I prepped probably more than anybody else for that audition. And I went and I read for 4 different roles. I memorized the lines, and I thought I could have a chance at one of the smaller roles. I thought I'd actually be really good at a couple of them. One of them, I thought I could do this Professor Van Helsing in my sleep. Well, they offered me the lead. I played Dracula for,
your
for
first
12
acting experience, really?
Yeah.
And you play Dracula. Wow.
Yeah. I'd done 4 short films over 20 years. Someone was doing a project and I jumped in. And so I'd had that experience. I'd hadn't done a play, and I was like, I don't know if I know how to act. But yeah, over 12 weeks, and I got paid. It was a professional production.
Perfect.
Some of those actors had been acting for years and had never been paid for it. So it was a big deal for all of us. And then I got a coach. I did the things you do. I know how to grow a business. I know how to do that. So I got a little bit of training, and I went and did 6 short films, ended up getting paid for the last 2. And then I did 2 commercials. I was so thrilled to be on do it. It was a lifetime goal of mine. I got 2 commercials and rocked it.
Good for you.
Not just did it, but they said, that's just amazing. They're like, come over here and look at this footage. This is so good. This is amazing. So it really helped my confidence. And now I've moved 2.5 months ago, I moved to Hollywood, and I'm doing this scene study class where you don't get exercises to do. They don't, hey, go and do this exercise. No, you prepare a scene, you rehearse 10 to 20, 30, 40 hours, and then you present it in a professional theater on stage to the class and the teacher critiques you. And so that's what I'm doing. I've got rehearsal tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm doing a 20-minute scene. I've got 6 minutes of monologues in this scene, and I love it.
How
It's so
awesome is
good.
this? Like, this is just like, it's so, I love how you've shared everything and it's taken you into like something that you absolutely love. And this is the thing, right? It doesn't, age is age means nothing. When you actually start to follow what lights you up, like the doors start to open, and sometimes they
Yeah.
open and it's like, damn, that opened fast. Now what?
Yeah.
Like, now what? And it just
Yep.
keeps opening.
And I just got new headshots, and I've just started auditioning now that I'm getting more settled in Los Angeles. And I got 2 live auditions, and the second one was for a game show with Jay Leno, and I got it. They said, all right, you're on. So we filmed that last week, and it was very exciting to meet Jay and to be on a studio and do all that. I can't share the outcome until the show airs, but yeah, things are really heating up, and I'm finding the depth to it. I'm finding I'm motivated. I'm finding I'm lit up during rehearsal. I love directing and producing it. I'm like, I got to get 3 more students to do this. We got to set rehearsals up. How are we going to do 2 flashbacks on stage when this is written for, for TV, and like working all that? It's very exciting.
This is so awesome. Again, our time is going to be short, and I know that, but I so appreciate all of your time. Can I ask you, speaking of, you just said game show, you were on a national gong show. Is that correct?
I was on the Australian version. It was,
okay.
Hey, it's Saturday. It was a segment called Red Faces, and you do an act, and, they might gong you in the first 2 seconds, and, or if you're really lucky, you'll last a minute. And yes, I did that about 25 years ago because I wanted to promote my entertainment business. I was playing guitar and singing. And so my act was called Mr. Woody. And I actually went, that was one of the most terrifying things I have ever done. I'm not a strong singer, and I was wearing a kilt. And I was so scared in the green room. I started worrying about losing bladder control, and 3 drops came out.
Oh, crap.
And I'm wearing a kilt. You think that calmed my nerves?
No.
I was national television. Am I going to piss my pants? Fortunately, I'm a very practical man, and I had my overnight bag with me because they'd flown me to Melbourne, Australia for this. I put on 2 extra pairs of underpants in the hope that if I did pee myself, they might, soak it up. I might have stuffed some toilet paper down there as well.
I'm sorry for laughing. I could just picture.
Oh,
but I'm
sure, it's hilarious now.
Oh, it's hilarious. And it was like, literally, I mean, I grew up in the gong show. Like, we're in the same age bracket here. Okay. So there are people who might be listening going, gong show, what's that? Listen. So if you're in a space of going to do something you're not totally comfortable in, and you're going on a show that gongs you when they don't want, like, think of it's like an ultimate rejection feeling to work through. So you did that 25 years ago. Like, that's seriously, that's
if you search for David Wood, Mr. Woody, on
Mhm.
YouTube, you'll find a little clip of me in a kilt singing, dressed as one of the Proclaimers and singing in a very bad Scottish accent.
Oh, I love the
Yeah, and I
Proclaimers.
did well. I won't tell you how long I lasted. You'll have to see.
Okay, I will definitely watch. Shifting another, if I am okay to ask you, because you are a person who has overcome a lot of adversity in your life. But to me, I look at it and go, like, everything that you've come through, you're creating something, you're stepping into a higher level, you're stepping into a different level of yourself. Like, you're using these experiences and they're helping you to become an even better, stronger person, however you want to say that, that can create more impact. You had a very serious injury. You had a how old were you when you fractured your spine
Yeah.
with a paraglide?
Yeah, I'll share that story, and then I do need to go because
I
I've got to
know, I
prep for
know.
clients and for scenes. Yeah, it actually wasn't that serious of an injury. I did fracture my spine, but it was like the good fracture, if there is such a thing, and I'm sure there is such a thing. I was, I'm an adventurer, so if
Mhm.
I'm scared of something, I lean into it, which is why I've done so many of these courageous conversations and mouse naming, because I notice the fear and I want to conquer the fear.
Mhm.
So I'm scared of heights. So I became a certified paragliding pilot. And I had one experience in Bali where I had a full collapse. I was 300 feet above the ocean, had a full collapse, and I managed to reinflate the glider at 80 feet
Oh,
above the ocean. And so I really, really came close to dying that day. I walked away from that one. And then a year or two later, I was in Colombia paragliding in the mountains, and I'd come down to land on top of a mountain. I had this guide in my ear, watching me and coaching me. And he told me not to land down the bottom because it was a bit too dangerous with the conditions. So I'd land on top. I was 1 foot above the ground, and then a bubble of air caught me and took me up, and I had a partial collapse and I fell 15 feet onto my butt.
oh, directly.
That's not something you ever want to do. So
No.
there was screaming involved, there was agony, and I've got the video, and I've never gone and edited the video. I don't know why, but I've got the video, and I wanted to edit it because within seconds of the screaming stopping, I said, "It's okay. I know what this is," because I'd actually fractured my spine in a parkour accident a few years earlier, and I could wiggle my toes. And I was like, I may have a compression fracture. I've got massive contusions for sure. There's going to be bleeding and bruising, but I'm okay. And I had a wonderful day. It was a wonderful experience, except the worst part, there's a theme I'm detecting here. I had to pee.
There's the theme.
I had to pee my whole life. I had to pee. I'd been flying for an hour or two.
Mhm.
And then they had me wait. I had to wait for an hour in a shed alone on a stretcher for the ambulance to come and find me. And I was busting to go. And then in the ambulance, they'd stop the ambulance. And I kept on saying in Spanish, tengo que orinar, tengo que orinar. I knew the language. They rolled me, 2 people rolled me over, kept my head steady, gave me a bottle, unzipped my fly, and then looked away to give me some privacy in the back of the ambulance. I couldn't go.
But you had to go, but you
I
couldn't.
had to go so badly. I couldn't go. It was a horrible sensation. I did that twice. And here's the irony. Because I was trying to do a cross-country flight that day, and peeing in the air is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I've tried so many different ways. I was wearing an adult diaper. Yes, I'm owning my choice, ladies and gentlemen.
Definitely are
I'm a
today.
practical man. I was wearing an adult diaper, hoping that I'd get to fly long enough that I'd need to use it. So I'm lying there in the ambulance. I could just pee into the diaper,
Mhm.
and I couldn't. My body would not. I had years of training and not peeing while I'm wearing clothes. And so my body wouldn't do it. That was the worst part of it. Finally, when I got to the hospital, and after all trying to tell them this is a rush, you've got to help me stand up, all this red tape, and they're like, "Oh, we can't do it." They left me alone with a blanket and a bottle for 5 minutes. That's all it took. And it was perhaps, it'd be up there in my top 5 best experiences in the world, being able to pee. I was worried about my bladder rupturing, which I understand is an incredibly painful experience.
Yeah, I've heard it.
As Nurse Jackie would know.
And can we just for a second, why you
Yeah.
said Nurse Jackie? Because we started the podcast, and the first thing that David said to me is, "You look really familiar." And yeah,
I thought we'd met. I
Mhm.
thought we'd met, and turns out we hadn't, because you look like an actress. So yeah, Nurse Jackie would know. I was terrified about that. So I wasn't worried about the fractured spine, and I healed, and I'm walking and I'm well. It was actually, people think, oh, that must have been a horrible experience. No, what happens to us is not what gives us the experience. It's our mindset and our attitude around it. And I had a lovely time. People were so nice to me.
Amazing.
So,
How
yeah.
we respond, right? How we respond is literally what it all comes down to. I know you have to run. 2 quick things. I will make sure everything is in the show notes. Where is the best place for people to connect, learn more about you, your book, Mouse in the Room? Where is it?
Thank you. And I'm just writing down the time reference because I want to get the clip from that story. It's a good one about the spinal injury and the ruptured bladder. Yeah, I'll tell you where to get the book and where to go if you're same place if you're interested in coaching with me. mouseintheroom.com. It's for parents, friends, partners, and leaders. It's actually for humans, but there's a chapter for each of those categories of people to make it specific for you. Great for managers and leaders and teams. mouseintheroom.com. You can get it, the electronic version, or you can get the print version, and it's on Amazon. Also at mouseintheroom.com is the 3D process, the 3D worksheet. It's a really simple worksheet. Perfect. Print off 20 copies and have that handy. That's free. And then if you're interested in coaching with me, I mainly coach business owners who are up and running, already successful, usually at least 150,000 in revenue. And you want to double your business. You probably want to simplify life and focus better. You want to free up more time so that you can live the life you're really meant to live. And that's where it gets interesting, because I deal with the whole person, not just your business, but as you got from this conversation, who you are. Someone said to me recently, it was the nicest thing. No, he posted this on a public forum. He said, it feels more like I've hired Yoda than a business coach. I was like, yes. Thank you. Yes, that's what we're going for. And you go to mouseintheroom.com and click in the menu for coaching, and you can apply for a free session. I don't charge for that because it's how I find the right people to work with. Mouseintheroom.com.
I will make sure that's all shared. Absolutely love this conversation. I have no doubt we could chat for a very long time. Yes, I have no doubt. Last quick question. What lesson in life are you most grateful for?
That it's all okay. Even when it seems like it's not. And the mind and the nervous system and maybe other people are screaming at us and saying, this is wrong. It's not true. And I forget from time to time, but I got that from my many teachers, and particularly Byron Katie. And, I couldn't get it by reading something. I couldn't get it intellectually. I had to get it from some kind of immersion with my teacher, my coach. And I got, my friend said to me after an immersion I had, don't you just know that no matter what happens, that's actually all okay? And I said, yeah, I think I do get that. And I'm glad that you asked me this so I can remind myself right now that even when I think, oh, that's wrong, that's a problem, that's the ego going off. No, if you do your work, you can get to a point always. Same spinal injury. I have a spinal injury, screaming in agony. I'm lying here in Colombia, and it's all okay. So that's something I love being able to bring to my clients, because we all forget.
We all forget. And That's a superpower. I literally say that's a superpower. It is like a perspective. If you can learn to shift that quickly, that is really powerful. Thank you so much for everything that you shared, for the entertaining conversation, honestly, and so much value. Honestly, grateful. I will put everything in your show notes, and I've enjoyed this time with you today.
Oh, I've loved this. I'm pulling out 4 or 5 video clips from this. Sometimes I pull out none. It's like, everything I've said is kind of similar. No, there's so much. You're good. You've got a gift, my friend. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You're good.
I'm going to receive this. This is like, podcasting is one of my favorite things in the world to do. So I honestly, I will receive it, and very grateful.